The one. All right, welcome to the latest episode of the Colman Power Organic Fitness Podcast. This episode is going to be on the topic of foods, and in particular, one of the three main macronutrients that is most certainly the likes of protein we're going to discuss here, because it's a heated topic, because a lot of people, I suppose, are under eating it, and a lot of people are unsure. And in fact, when they're unsure of what proteins to consume, what ends up happening is they undereat overall, and that lends to itself to binge eating. So we'll go through the likes of topics we'll be discussing in this week's show. So I have, I suppose, the live open here on TikTok if anybody wants a shout out and or would like to listen back to it. Hit me up with your questions and or your name and where you're from. So straight away, the main differences between protein sources, because protein is not all created equally. There would definitely be a recommendation from myself to make sure that you are getting complete proteins. Complete proteins means it contains all 9 essential amino acids, and that would reference towards people eating chicken, fish, turkey, and eggs, and most certainly getting them organically. Why? Because they will have higher omega-3, which is actually a healthy fat, which is essential for your diet. It's anti-inflammatory. These are all simple things. So if you are then, I suppose, on a vegan or vegetarian, or would like one meal a your day with more veg in it, then lean towards other complete protein sources, such as the likes of your tofu, tempeh, which is higher protein source, and then you have the likes of your hemp seed, which is another complete protein source. But with the likes of the first ones, meat and meat base, whether chicken, fish, turkey, or eggs, it is something that would typically have lower carbohydrates. So every time you think of a food, the closer you, I suppose, get to a single ingredient, the better. So if you are leaning towards, which I don't recommend, protein bars, which are literally a glorified chocolate bar for all the world, I have no problem in people taking a protein supplement. I would have a preference towards an organic one, and one that you digest very well, whether it is non-dairy and or is a whey. Something that's really important that you make sure the one that you consume is one that suits you and helps you to reach your fitness goal. But always go for whole foods first as a golden rule, because why? It's much more satiating, and as a result of that, a definition of a supplement is to supplement what you cannot get from your diet. Another main distinctive advantage of the likes of your protein in your diet is it has a thermogenic effect. That means that it most certainly burns calories as it's being digested. Carbohydrates doesn't really have a high percentage of that effect, but it does a small amount. You have the likes of fats, which also doesn't have a major effect on the ability of it. Literally, it burns calories as it's being digested, but protein can have it up as far as 20, if not 30% of its overall calories. So let's take the example of like a chicken fillet. So if you have 100 grams of a chicken fillet, and that may be in the region of 100 calories. We'll just take that as an example. 30% of that is used up in its digestive process. So if anybody is looking for, I suppose, food that will help them to lose weight, it's not the chicken, it's not that it's eggs, it's not that it's tofu, it's not that it's tempeh, it's any protein source that you most certainly consume on a regular basis will help you to, I suppose, lose weight when you are in a calorie deficit. So that is why protein foods are recommended and upped on a regular basis when people are in a weight loss phase. And to be healthier, I recommend, I suppose, a wide spectrum of whole foods that do contain protein, as the same really ones that I just mentioned. So then touching on the likes of incomplete proteins, which would be the likes of maybe chickpeas and or rice and or potatoes. So that would definitely lend itself to, I suppose, I love this visual thing. So those of you guys are watching on YouTube, and take your two hands out left and right beside your face and bring them together. That is just a realization of when you combine two different types of protein, two plant-based sources of protein, you get all 9 essential amino acids, which we must consume from our diet, which is why I recommend people to consume complete proteins in breakfast, in lunch, and in dinner. There are no preference to people starting at a certain time having your breakfast, for the main reason that everyone's different. You don't have to eat any specific one time, but what you do need to do is hit your protein target on a regular basis. I mean daily, because protein is essential. Okay, don't just hit it one day. And recommendation for myself will be 1.5 kgs to 2 grams per kg, especially when you're doing type of workouts that I recommend, home workouts, whether with body weight and or then progressing to the likes of dumbbells. You don't have to be heavy dumbbells. You just have to, supposed to have you using large muscle groups and then tearing more muscle fibers when you increase the likes of the load that you're holding. That is 100% key to, I suppose, you reaching, I suppose, a fitness goal in itself. And when people ask me to, I suppose, break down the likes of their meals, should they have 3 meals, should they have 6 meals, and how much protein to have in each meal, that is definitely down to the individual. So for myself, being a 70 kg male individual who exercises on a regular basis, I will be hoping and knowing that when I use, I suppose, an app such as MyFitnessPal, I would most certainly have no problem at all in hitting my 2 grams of protein per main meal. So from 70, double 70 kg, double that to hit a protein target of 140 roughly. That would break down to, if I have 3 main meals, they say don't do maths live, but I'm going to most certainly give it one hell of a shot. So divide 1, so we're going to say 50, it's under 50, it's about 43.33 at a guess. So that's 43 grams of protein with my main meals. And I'm slightly over 70 kg, so we're leaning towards the 45 grams of protein in a meal. So how would you hit that for breakfast? And I'm going to give an example, which I absolutely love myself, and that just, I suppose, makes it easier for better for people to understand. So I'm a visual person. So always for breakfast, if you're looking for a complete protein source, a simple one is eggs. Why? Because they're low carbohydrate and they can be cooked in less than 8 minutes, especially with sunny side up, which gains you the advantage of those beneficial antioxidants, lutein and zeaxanthin, and eggs being nature's multivitamin. I love the goddamn things. And that is something that I do recommend. So 3 eggs would be 21 grams of protein. So how do I bump it up from that? If you had the likes of 100 grams of, let's say, black kidney beans, which I just had for my main meal of the day, black kidney beans, 100 grams would be 7 grams. So that would be 21 plus 7 would get you to 28. I'm glad I did that there on my head. 28. So that means we need another, I suppose, 10 grams of protein that will bump us up well in over the likes of our 40, coming close to our 40 grams of protein. So if we're on 28, we go to 38 grams of protein with the likes of 20 grams of hemp seeds, which I suppose additionally get people to add into their diet, because it's something that most certainly people can get from the likes of an easily added nut, those hemp seeds. They're complete protein and they contain healthy fats and they're lower carbohydrate. Then my typical favorite carbohydrates are oats. And I've actually even this morning made the likes of savory oats. These are simple. These are meals you can get on the go for starting off your day. Another actually meal that I'm actually using with a current client at this moment in time is yogurt. Why? Because it's a natural probiotic food, apologies, that naturally populate the likes of your beneficial gut bacteria. The point of which is yogurt is something that most shops can get. You get a high protein yogurt, and as a result of that, then if you were using a protein supplement, you can get up to 30 grams of protein if you ate the whole tub and use the protein scoop that had 25 grams of protein. So that is absolute breadwinner. Over 35 grams of protein with no prep, with no nothing. And that would be literally something that you can have as a meal, as a snack, and adding cinnamon and fruits is what I would recommend for that, 100%. A lot of people do end up asking me, what are my thoughts about honey? We're touching on the likes of, I suppose, protein right now, but I'm just going to lean towards honey as and its benefits. Honey is bacterial. It's high in antioxidants, but it is a carbohydrate. So some people say that they don't eat and consume a lot of honey for the main reason that it is a carbohydrate. And I would most certainly get people to add in honey at times where they have and their body at a carb sensitive time, an insulin sensitive time. So that's first thing in the morning. So with fruits, and then using the likes of cinnamon to control your blood sugar levels, which that's very important for preventing cravings. And that is a little point that supposed to came up in a client nutritional call as of today. So I just have some of the comments coming in here. I'm going to read out one or two of them. So if anyone else has any more, make sure you pop them in to the likes of this live here now. What's your favorite musical actually came up there in the questions, but I'm going to say The Sound of Music, maybe. That might be one that I would lean towards. Next one is smoked salmon triggers migraines in me, but the new savory oats recipe looks good. Yeah, that new savory oats recipe is available on my TikTok and will also be available on YouTube very soon. So with the likes of salmon and triggering migraines with individuals, it's well worth trying to get, I suppose, foods that suit you in particular. But I would always lean towards the likes of foods that are, I suppose, either caught wild. Wild salmon would be preferably something that mightn't have as many microplastics in it, and also if they are farmed fish, that can also be another reason with extra added chemicals in the feed that they are given that we are the end consumers of. So Laura, I would definitely highly recommend to either have another fish source that would be better for yourself, and or trying non-farmed salmon, and or switching up to another fish would be definitely the other main advantage. But for the most part, I do like smoked salmon because there's no prep. Again, it's just literally in the fridge. You take it out and add it to savory oats, which is unbelievable. And pinky plain salt and natural electrolytes that I do love. And with salmon also being one of the things that has high omega-3 and is good for brain development. So brain and cognitive function. I've most certainly improved the likes of my cognitive function and my brain usage since I finished college and university. That's all down to diet and exercise, and that's definitely another, I suppose, point to expand on in this show. So foods that are able to boost a type of protein called BDNF, so it's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, in your, I suppose, diet that I would recommend would be turmeric. Turmeric is not only able to have the capacity to improve brain function, but also it's anti-inflammatory. But to activate those anti-inflammatory properties, you must most certainly add black pepper. So for the main meal of this evening, I had black beans cooked in a pan, an iron pan, and most certainly using that as a way of getting in spices and antioxidants. So the antioxidants that are contained in turmeric would most certainly be beta carotene. Beta carotene is something that can improve your skin, brightens it. Throw away the likes of those face creams. Mother's Day coming up, chalk it down, get your ma the likes of some turmeric into our diet. So I definitely do recommend that to you guys. Someone said I talk very fast, and I most certainly will slow down because I do have a preference to speed up to try get as much information across to people in a show and a live. So I'm multitasking here at its finest. And salmon for some reason triggers migraines, and I'm just going to expand on that because Laura's here and bring out some great topics. So with the likes of anything that causes migraines and causes issues for whatever the reason may be, it's most certainly well worth taking that out of your diet. But migraines are something that can be improved with the likes of cayenne pepper, which is another organic fitness spice, which is also in the book. Check it out. Available on Amazon. I'm allowed to say it. Why? Because it's my podcast and it's my book, and it's unreal. I've read it. I wrote it. I've underlined stuff in it. This is my copy right here. I've even pigtailed stickling sections, which are my favorite. I must be on the protein section right now. Major fan of that because I suppose the nutritional knowledge that is in this book is what I have learned over the last, I suppose, 10 odd years, and put it in its most simplest way for people to understand. Yeah. Can't wait to have consistently said. Your book is great. I'm so glad that people have mentioned that in the live, that I got to say it in the likes of this podcast. So again, if anybody has any questions, make sure you pop it into the comment section below, and I can also give you a shout out. And there we got regular listeners. We got Ash on there. We have the likes of Juicy FRON. We have Fanda. We have Rail77. We got Jimmy. We got Jim. Jimmy and Jim, Names, Frank, Sky, Cat, 128, Clarity, Quarrel. Those are some of the names at the top of the list right there at this moment in time. So getting and moving along with, I suppose, foods and intolerances, like dairy for the most part is something that people can have issues with. Why? Because it's all down to the gut, and that is just, I suppose, another reason to read the section on gut health in this book. And why people have leaky gut is because they have a semi-permeable, they have holes in their gut, in their intestine, which leaks food into areas where you don't necessarily want it, which ends up in the bloodstream, which causes inflammation. And that's why I get people that I train that are intolerant, that are unable to digest the lactose, which is just sugar, natural sugar found in milk, and switching it up to a non-dairy source. So soya or coconut would be something that they could have as a yogurt source. But with a coconut yogurt, it is high in healthy fats and saturated fats, and not all fat is created equally, and most certainly from the likes of coconut is a fat, but I do recommend to people on a regular basis, because fats help break down the likes of those proteins that you consume, and most certainly it is necessary and essential every single day. So fats, yes, but going back towards the likes of yogurts, if you don't eat a dairy yogurt, you most certainly then are eating a coconut yogurt, but coconut is low protein. And for people that I train, a common issue is that they would have low levels of protein in their diet. So touching on the likes of the soya, I would get people to consume it, and definitely getting it organic, for the fact that a lot of poorer countries, or just countries that produce the likes of soya, use genetically modified seeds. That means that they are able to tolerate sprays in the harvesting process of the bean, because that's what soya is made from. It's made from a bean. So I do most certainly recommend people to get organic soya, and the one that I use is, and I typically get from Super Value. We can also get it from Dunn's as well. There's a question coming in here. I notice when I open the door to sugar, it sets off savage cravings, so no go. And that is really the important point, I suppose, to expand on this podcast. And that's why I went to, that comes in from Ashley, all the way from America at this moment in time, Michigan. Shout out the Blues. And yes, when you are supposed to eat highly processed foods that contain sugar, it is something that can and does feed your bad bacteria. So there's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. It's kind of like the good angel and the bad angel. So what you want to do is start feeding more of the beneficial, good gut bacteria in your stomach with fermented foods that are going to increase the production of serotonin, which serotonin is your happy hormone. But if you're doing the direct opposite, you are most certainly going to cause issues with binge eating and or more cravings, leading towards poorer food choices. So that is, I suppose, a preference towards staying on a cleaner diet. And cleaner diet just means cooking for single ingredient foods and eating as much whole foods. And one thing people are not eating enough of, it's single ingredient, local, fresh and organic produce. Yes. And I'm going to say organic produce, with them being chemical free, is really key, because if you are consuming the likes of heavily sprayed, toxic meat produce and filled with hormones, they're going to cause havoc with the likes of their issues when it ends up landing in the likes of your stomach. And that's why I'm a main believer in that people, when they change their diet to an organic or chemical-free one, have, I suppose, a much better chance of reaching their fitness goal, whether it's weight loss or building lean muscle tissue. And that is, I suppose, a great point to turn in. I started eating meat again because I ate too much soya and it messed up my menstruation. And that is most certainly, and won't happen to be the next section in the book that I was just about to expand on right here. So soya products such as tempeh, tofu are something that you can add in as a complete protein source. However, not all food is created equally. If you are most certainly eating an excessive amount of poor quality soya, that is something that I don't recommend. And that's why I always, and don't have a preference towards any one particular diet. What we want you to do is get higher nutrition from the best quality foods that you can afford, because really food is medicine, and all the money in the world, I put this up as a post today, couldn't possibly get me to change the way I'm currently living right now. I don't have a perfect diet, I don't have a perfect life, but most certainly your health is your wealth. If you want, I suppose, to remember that if you grow a little bit of your own, that it's like printing money. For the most part, it's something that you either have more time or you have more money. So I want people to literally start doing the best they possibly can to add in more foods to their diet. And that's why I'm doing the Grow Your Own courses here based in Kildare. And that's going to give people a better indication of foods that they can grow to be as sustainable as they possibly can. So other protein sources, as we mentioned already, would be leaning back towards the likes of chicken, fish, turkey, eggs, and or other plant-based sources, incomplete proteins such as beans, those being French beans, and organic fitness food, broad beans, and other organic fitness food that actually had to be taken out of the book to add those back into a different maybe book in the future. Book number 2. We'll push out this book for another little while. And yes, those would definitely be something that I would recommend to yourself there. And that interesting. I've been worried about issues. How long did it take to get regular? Those are good comments coming in. There's good conversations going on those TikTok lives. If you haven't actually got on one of those lives, typically from the 8 to the 9 p.m. for those lives in particular, and you get, I suppose, questions answered by myself live, as well as there is often karaoke. There's a mic here, and on top of that, there's also the fact they're quite humorous, but you have to tune in to see exactly what goes on in the likes of those shows. And other than that, I'm going to, I suppose, answer this final question. Love to show the combinations of what makes complete proteins too. So neat. And in the likes of the book, there is a full section in how to make complete protein and several examples of that. So oats with the likes of pumpkin seeds would also make one. And there are beans, as I said, with the likes of potatoes would be another 2 incomplete proteins, which make complete protein. What I'm going to do is, for the YouTube listeners, I'm going to add in maybe an image that will pop up in this area here, which would be the one that is found also in the book. And if any of those have it, scroll over to section 7a, page 2. I don't know the page off the top of my head. But other than that, I suppose we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much. Page 23 is most certainly on, because I have the best page 23. So we will quickly read down through the likes of these ones that I have listed in the likes of the book. So beans and rice, and the examples that I gave are French beans and brown rice. We have oats and peanuts. I'm a major fan of peanuts, or nuts in general, because they are healthy fats and they do contain protein and magnesium that reduce cravings. We have chickpeas and pasta. This is just ringing back memories in relation to which is a question about exercise. I'm just going to get to that finally before the end of the show. And well, following that, we have whole wheat bread, maybe sourdough would be preferable because it's fermented, good for your gut health, and peanuts for the win. We have lentils and walnuts, high in omega-3, good for your brain function as well. Lentils being extremely high, 100 grams of lentils will be 24 grams of protein, and they contain that antioxidant beta-carotene. So we have soya beans and sesame seeds, which is tahini sesame seeds, and you have sunflower seeds and chickpeas, which is a hummus, and you have the likes of pumpkin seeds, and peanuts is really, in a nutshell, trail mix. So those are the likes of the incomplete proteins, which make a complete protein contain all 9 essential amino acids. This episode was brought to you by Colman Power's book, The Power of Organic Fitness. I sponsored my own podcast. Is that allowed? Yes, I just did it. So chalk that down for the win. So if you're looking for this book, it's available on Amazon, and or if not, beg, borrow, steal. Whoever has a copy of it at this moment in time, I'll be doing the likes of book signings at the Organic Fitness Retreat this weekend, and or following that, the next event would most certainly be the Grow Your Own course in Featherfield Farm in Kildare from 9:30 to 4:30. Full day of growing, and most certainly gaining the advantage of 77 plants going home with. Who else is offering that? No one else that I know of. No one. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. I'll answer some of the questions on this live, so bear with me on that point. So as I like to say, stay tuned, stay classy, keep it organic, and get on that good stuff. It's in the book. Stay tuned for next week's episode, out every Thursday.